coming to you live for the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app, good Monday morning. Here we are again with some rubble with either the Jets or the Giants. This time it is the New York Giants with one of their worst losses of the season. Once again, it is at home. It is embarrassing. You've got mocking going on. You've got Giants fans leaving early. There's no one in the stadium again. The Tommy DeVito bump that you were supposed to get was not a bump. And I've been saying, and I feel like we've agreed on this, that it's always felt a little bit different with Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll as compared to Joe Judge, as compared to Ben McAdoo, as compared to Pat Shurmur. And, you know, Brian Daboll wasn't going to let this thing completely go off the rails. And last year he didn't. They were able to save it with Tommy DeVito. But for the first time in their tenure, after listening to what the players said yesterday after the game and watching that performance, now I'm not so sure. Because it is following the same script as some of these other guys, where they have a good season, then things just get worse and worse and worse and worse. And there's no doubt about it, regardless of what we feel about Daniel Jones and watching him for 6 seasons, that the way that went down pissed off that locker room. Right or wrong, guys like Dexter Lawrence, guys like Malik Neighbors, and these comments about being soft, those are the things that get coaches and GMs fired. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Jay. I think you're spot on with your take this morning, and that's always the question that is asked to me anytime I'm out. You think they're going to fire this coach? You think they're going to fire that GM? And it could be either team. It could be any team, for that matter, that we follow here in New York. And I always say the same thing. It always depends on what the team looks like, what the team feels like. You know, that will ultimately push one of the owners to do something as drastic as Woody Johnson has already done. So it all depends on what the internal feeling is like. You know, what is John Mara thinking? What is the Tisch family thinking? You know, and you have all these different variables that, you know, will determine whether or not both Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are still here. And, you know, you couple this yesterday with yet another incredible performance by Saquon Barkley last night.
Yeah.
It just makes it all that much more worse. And then on top of that, you got a rookie wide receiver spouting off, you know, about how the team is soft. And, yeah, everybody's upset. I understand this. But, you know, like Daniel Jones needed to be benched, so get over it. I mean, he missed wide-open guys in London, didn't pull the trigger, had the right game plan and playbook. It was all there for him. And unfortunately, he could not pull the trigger and get it done. And, you know, the quarterback is the one who leads the entire team. That's the guy that everybody looks at, from the fans, the owners, the coaches, the trainers, the general manager, you know, all the scouts, all the players want that guy to be the man. They want him to be the man, and they paid him to be the man. And unfortunately for Daniel Jones, it didn't work out. What did work out for him is that John Mara is a professional. And he said, you know what? You're right. If you want to leave and you want to go somewhere, and I'm sure Daniel's agent already has like 2 or 3 different, you know, teams on the phone willing to bring him in immediately after 4 o'clock today. And, you know, the players that are left behind have got to get over it. It's part of the business.
Is it more, though? Because I thought about your whole situation with the Arizona Cardinals that we've talked about, where they were screwing you out of a bonus and benching you, and how you got a standing ovation because you didn't show up for a couple of days and stood up to the organization. Is it not so much the fact that Daniel Jones was benched because of his performance, but the fact that they made him the 4th-string quarterback, and it was clear that this injury guarantee thing was driving all of this? Is that something where, like, the players are like, damn, like, they really did this guy dirty over some money, and that sits poorly with them?
No, the totally different situation. By the way, my bonus was $400,000.
Well,
and, you know, I was making
just the
$700,000.
premise
I think I was making $750,000. But, yeah, I held out because there were other players that had grievances against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And I had known about those grievances, and I'll never forget being on I think a plane coming back from Minnesota or something, and one of the players telling me that, you know, you better watch your incentives. I said, what do you mean watch my incentives? He goes, know what your incentives are, because if you know what they are, they're going to end up pulling the rug out from under you, because that's what they do here. And that was the mentality within the team. This is different. You know, they knew that Daniel Jones got the money instead of Saquon Barkley. I'm just telling you, this team is home. They go home last night and they watch the Eagles and the Rams, and they watch Saquon Barkley running all over the field. And they're going, that guy should be in our backfield, not in that backfield. And we gave our quarterback all the money. I'm just telling you. So that's the reality of the situation. And, you know, and Saquon's performance last night was just, if you didn't see it, folks, 26 rushes, 255 yards, 2 rush TDs. He ran for 72 and 70-yard runs last night, and he had 4 receptions for 47 yards. He had more yards himself yesterday against the Rams than the Giants' entire offense had against the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes it even worse. And I understood at the time why they didn't sign Saquon Barkley, but it just adds so much fuel to this fire now. And if there's any chance, I mean, that Daniel Jones gets an opportunity to play on a team that's still involved in a playoff race and then plays well there after he signs somewhere, probably later today, I mean, that's just going to compound things even more. And I heard CeeLo say this morning that I didn't realize he had this many interceptions, but Xavier McKinney now, also, he has 7 interceptions.
Oh, he's killing them for the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
Yeah.
I knew he was playing well, but 7 interceptions, that's just another one of those things. And I know it was a Jet, not a Giant, but you have Mekhi Becton tweeting out yesterday, man, football's fun again. I'm so happy. And like everybody that seems to leave this area, whether they're a Jet or a Giant, you know, Mike Williams, Xavier McKinney, Saquon Barkley, Mekhi Becton, on and on and on, end up being happier and better players.
I kind of feel like both of these teams are where the Knicks were for like 20 years. And now I feel like players want to come play here now after they had this little magical run last year. And all of a sudden now guys want to come here. There is something about what's going on with both of these franchises. It's hard to really put your finger on it. It's, you know, there are certain guys that are in charge that you'd like to think that we would have, that we did believe in. At least I believed in Joe Douglas. That's 100%. I'll go to my grave saying he knows what the hell he's doing. Now, did he get it right with everybody? No GM does. As a matter of fact, I mean, you know, a lot of these teams, you know, again, like so the Xavier McKinney thing for the Packers. They got a young defense. They had money, so they could overpay for safety, which they felt like they needed.
Yeah.
The Giants couldn't pay for safety because they were paying for edge rushers and the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's the way the salary cap gets played out. And if you really have a good front office, you're looking to poach certain players from certain teams, knowing that it's a financial crunch. So when you give that player a contract offer, you'd like to think that when said player says, okay, I'll take that, but I'll go back to my original team to see if they can match it. The team that's making the offer already knows that the original team's not going to match it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I kind of feel like that kind of happened with Xavier McKinney in this regard with the Green Bay Packers. But saying all that, I mean, the Giant fans, there is a silver lining. Right now, you're number 2 in the draft pecking order. You're right behind Jacksonville. You're ahead of the Raiders, believe it or not, who are just abominable as well. So you're there, and now this is where the season gets interesting because we saw yesterday a number of teams get knocked off that were on their way to playoffs by teams that got no chance going to the playoffs. And the Cowboys are one of them.
Yeah, which is, you know, and that's another thing that just looked so bad for the Giants yesterday. There's some of these other bad teams that at least battled a little bit, you know, like the Carolina Panthers.
Tennessee Titans.
Like the Tennessee Titans, like the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it's just absolutely no fight, no will, no anything. And then to hear the players, I mean, multiple players calling the team soft yesterday, which is just one of those terms that, like, when you start saying that, that's one of the worst. Quit and soft, like the 2 worst things you could possibly say. And they were saying about themselves. And it is funny, and I'm sure that, you know, CeeLo will have it, but it was Bruce Beck, the happiest man in the world, that was asking Malik Neighbors those questions, like, how'd you feel you guys played today? And he was like, soft as F. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you what, if I'm the coach, guess what? You're putting on your pads, you're putting on your helmet, and we're going out there and we're practicing. If I'm going down, I'm going to make it miserable for everybody. And I know it's a delicate thing for Brian Daboll. It's not an easy thing. You know, think about everything that he's gone through. And as a coach, he was the NFL Coach of the Year 2 years ago. His coaching hasn't changed. I mean, he's the same guy. maybe a little thinner.
Yeah.
But I would just say that, not much has changed other than, the quarterback situation has been pretty much a nightmare.
Yeah, and it's going to continue to be unless they draft that guy, because finding that quarterback somewhere else is damn near impossible. You got to hit on these guys in the draft. So, what is going to happen if this thing keeps going south? They do have the number 1 overall pick or the number 2 overall pick, but the team just has quit on Brian Daboll like they quit on Ben McAdoo. Is John Mara going to say, all right, well, we're going to come back with these guys because we hired Brian Daboll and Joe Shane to pick their quarterback for Brian and Daboll to be able to get his hands on the young quarterback and be able to groom him. So I'm going to stick with him for continuity's sake because, changing these regimes every 2 or 3 years hasn't worked. Or is he going to say, man, here we go again. I got an entire locker room that hates the head coach and the general manager. How could I possibly bring them back?
If this, I would just say this, and I'll try to
look at how similar this is.
I know that.
It's
I'm just
unbelievable. As CBS Sports Network puts up McAdoo, Shermer, Judge, and Daboll, it's the same fourth. This is going to be the fourth guy, if he gets fired, that started out where everybody's like, okay, not so bad. And then the second season was terrible, and then the third season just awful, and gone.
Right. And what I was going to say is that, the whole offseason Hard Knocks thing looks ridiculous now.
Oh, yeah.
Because of what Saquon's doing. I would also say that depending on how this thing bears out, no matter what John Mara said 4 or 5 weeks ago when he said nobody's losing their job, what happens is that they listen to the fans. They see the fans leave. They see the fans mocking. They don't want that. They're selling fans, believe it or not, entertainment. They want fans to come to MetLife Stadium, or as a friend of mine sent me this morning, No Life Stadium, because neither team has any life whatsoever in that building for some reason. I don't know. There's obviously not a home field advantage for either one of these teams right now. It's not like the Detroit Lions are walking into Ford Field because they do have a home field advantage because they're doing something that they haven't done in 90 years.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. But I mean, watching this yesterday, first of all, Baker Mayfield is that's what you hope that Daniel Jones someday can be. I don't know if Daniel even has that in him, but you could see the fire that he plays with. I think Tommy DeVito, a little bit similar, but just not as good as him, plays with that same kind of fire. But, like I told you, once you can't handle the blitz, they're going to keep coming.
Yeah.
And they're going to keep hitting you.
I mean, there was that one sack where it just looked like there was 50 Tampa Bay Buccaneers and 5 New York Giants.
And so that means that either Tommy DeVito doesn't understand the pass protections and didn't get it off quickly enough, or somebody is blowing an assignment on the offensive line and letting a guy come free. And it's one thing to be out there before the game throwing the ball all over the field without the pass rush.
Yeah.
It's a totally different set of circumstances when you're out there and the bullets are flying for real. And, that's the thing. I thought that he settled down a little bit, but there's no expectation on that offense to score points. They don't have any expectation to go out there and score points. There's a methodical way of going about things and expectations that you have when you are a great offensive team, because everything's got to be in sync. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Not so much on defense. You can fly around and you can make plays just by hustle and by your attitude. But I just think on offense, everybody's got to be on that same page, and everybody's got to believe that they can score, that they can make the play. And the Giants just don't have that. They don't have any of that. I watch 11 guys going, in 11 different directions. And there's no rhyme or reason. And if they do make a play, there's usually a penalty on it, a holding penalty or something that gets called back. When they get it to 3rd and long, forget it. They don't have a chance.
Yeah, and we talk about what the Jets need to turn their organization around and the type of personality. I mean, if John Mara ends up moving on from Brian Daboll and Joe Shane and all the bad hires that he's had, I mean, is he going to dip into that same situation he has dipped into, where he does the coordinator and the assistant GM thing and then just flop on that again? Because you have those guys here already. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's easy for me to identify the guy that I think could turn the Jets around at the head coach. With the Giants, I don't know. I really don't know. And I don't think it's going to be Bill Belichick, even though we've talked about that a lot, because, I mean, this is now a full-blown, from the ground up, once again rebuild with the New York Giants. And he's going to want to do that?
Well, I would say that, if Andrew Thomas were healthy, there are probably a good 10 to 12 players in this team that you want to keep and you want to keep building around. There are some really good players here. And, Malik Neighbors is one of those players. They're going to have a very high draft pick and maybe the first overall pick. They may be able to get Shedeur Sanders, although, watching him against Kansas this weekend, I just want to watch him. Like, when he plants his foot and he throws it, it's like, boom, it's right there. But there's a lot of, moving around and, secondary plays. But when he stands in there and he throws it, he can really throw it. But, is he really – I don't know. I don't necessarily know that it jumps off the page to me, but he's going to be the first quarterback taken.
Yeah, I mean, in this year, and that's what matters for the Jets and the Giants. I mean, the Jets could end up right up there too, by the way. And I can't wait to see what this week brings as far as Jets news is concerned about if Aaron Rodgers is going to step back on the field again. Because, I mean, some of this stuff that's swirling around everywhere, I would not be surprised if he was done for the year. We didn't see him play another game.
I told you he's hurt.
Well, right. And then so is he's denying imaging. Is it because he doesn't want to know what his injury is, or does he have one of these weird radiation theories? I'm serious.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I would think that he knows what he's got injured. He knows. Of course he knows. And he knows what it feels like, and he probably doesn't want to be told that his hamstring's off his leg, off his bone. I give him credit because he's out there busting his ass and he's trying to win. It's not been pretty.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, man. When you got all of this expectation that has been on him for a year and a half, and the Achilles goes, then the knee gets twisted, then I believe the hamstring gets ripped off the bone. That's what I think. I could watch it and I can see it.
Yeah, so we'll get a McAfee interview tomorrow, I'm assuming, and lay it all out.
I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you about moving on from him now or what he's going to do. That's the wild card. I have no idea.
Could he release him? I mean, I have to look at the cap situation.
No,
but
I think it would be way too much money that would get hit with. The one thing I will say is that his contract is not guaranteed next year. The contract's not, but there's still a cap hit that goes along with a roster bonus.
Well, he's not playing here next year. I think that's been established. So I wonder. I mean, why would he continue to play with an injury if he has any designs on playing next year and he's not going to be a Jet and the team is out of it? Why would he fight through this?
What I just don't understand is how this whole thing fell apart so fast. It's hard for me to understand that, especially coming into the season. And I know they added Devontae Adams late, but I wish they would have added him when I wanted him to be added, and that would have been in August.
Right.
That would have been the smarter move. But I don't know, man. This whole thing went south so fast. The last 6 weeks, this whole thing came crashing and burning down for the Jets. I mean, they were in the game against Minnesota and the Broncos. And those two games, to me, are what decided the fate of Rob Saleh, and I think just really tore Woody up. Whatever it was around those games that got him upset, that ultimately ended up getting rid of Joe Douglas, and Rob Saleh was right around those games.
All right, we got CeeLo with us this morning as Jerry is out in Vegas with Rutgers. We've got plenty of Giants and Jets for you, and, of course, it was a crazy end to that 1 o'clock slate, and we'll get into some of that as well on this Monday morning.